Hi, this is Nathan Tintle. In this learning goal video, we are going to discuss how random assignment gives researchers the ability to draw a cause and effect conclusion. We will use the lying on the internet example to talk about this learning goal. Remember that confounding variables are associated with both the explanatory and the response variable. In the lying on the internet example, imagine if all the male players used the internet to do their negotiation, and all the female players used pencil and paper to do their negotiation. And then at the end of the study, imagine that we saw a substantial difference between the amount of lying when we compared the two groups. The question would be, is the difference that we're seeing in the amount of lying due to gender differences or because of the negotiating format? In this study, we couldn't tell, and that's because of confounding. The gender variable is confounded with the negotiating format. In fact, all the males are of one type and all the females are of the other type, so it's completely confounded. So there's no way to separate out the impact of gender from the impact of the negotiating format. So what's the solution? Well, the solution is to randomly assign observational units to groups. Now your groups will be balanced on all potential confounding variables. We use kind of a silly example here where we put all the males in one group and all the females in the other, but you can imagine a case where you don't know the confounding variable ahead of time, or it's hard to measure. The beauty of random assignment is the groups that you get after you do the random assignment will look like each other, which means that any potential confounding variable will be balanced between the two groups. It'll be similarly spread between the two groups. So for example, gender is going to be approximately equal split between the groups. So you'll have approximately the same number of males in the email group as you will in the pencil and paper group. So what does this mean then about confounding? Well, in order to be a confounding variable, the variable must be associated with both the explanatory and the response. In a randomized experiment, because you've randomly assigned subjects to the treatment groups, all possible confounding variables are no longer associated with the explanatory variable, thus there are no potential confounding variables. A few words of caution. First, random assignment yields groups with similar characteristics on average. It's not always the case that you're going to get a perfectly even split, but on average you will. Second, all possible confounding variables are, on average, equally balanced between the two groups. Third, random assignment thus allows us to potentially infer a cause and effect conclusion. This is because there's no other possible explanations for the change in the response variable. All these confounding variables have been dealt with. There's only one possible explanation left. That is your explanatory variable, which is under the control of the researcher. And finally, and let me emphasize this, students have a tendency to confuse random assignment and random sampling. Two very different things. Random assignment potentially leads to a cause and effect conclusion. Random sampling allows you to generalize.